Hi, today I will be analyzing break-even charts and interact with them as well. So before we get started, it's important to understand in the Y what's going to be representing on the Y-axis and on the X-axis. What we have illustrated on the X-axis is the quantity of output that a firm will produce. That's represented in the X-axis. Meanwhile, in the Y-axis, profit, costs, revenues, which is going to represent the Y-axis. It's going to be shown from the left side of the graph. Moreover, it's important to have some keywords into this graph. One of the first keywords that's important to know is total revenue. Total revenue is also defined as a total earning of a firm from the sale of its output. So that's represented typically from the line that has a steeper slope, but then has a downward slope, as I will be showing next. Then it's important to understand what the total fixed cost is. And the fixed cost, which is a horizontal slope, is the costs that do not change as output changes. And this usually arises from the use of fixed inputs. So it stays at a standard level during the short run, but in the long run can alter itself. As in the long run, all the variables become all the inputs become variables, and so costs can change in the long run. But besides that, the total variable cost, which is another keyword that can be useful to define total cost, which is going to be next. Total variable cost is defined as the costs that vary as output changes. And this arises from the use of variable inputs. So now, total cost. Total cost is the curve that represents the sum of the fixed costs and the variable costs. And finally, to have a further understanding of the break-even point will be the intersection between the total revenue, which is what the firm receives, with the total cost, meaning what they have paid for it in order to get in order to have sold their goods. So the break-even point is the minimum point that a firm must be able to produce in order for them to be lucrative, and profit usually is generated when total revenue is greater than total cost. Meanwhile, if total revenue is lower than total cost, as it can be illustrated from this section, then it's a loss for them. So in order to have a general normal profit, which is the minimum amount of revenue needed, they need to have surpassed the break-even point. So now I'm going to start analyzing some break-even charts and some activities. Here I've illustrated the Maze Green yachts. And the Maze Green yachts, as can be shown here, is represented with the fixed cost as a yellow line, straight line going, horizontal line going across, and the total revenue is represented with the red line, while total cost is represented with the blue line. So what will happen if I start to first alter the fixed cost? If I increase the fixed cost, then that will make total cost increase as well. So notice as I increase the fixed cost, total cost is as well increasing with it, making the break-even level of output greater, meaning that the firm will now have to be able to produce at a greater amount in order for them to break with their total cost and then be able to generate profit. But if I decrease fixed costs, then that makes total cost less expensive and possibly make total revenue greater, having a smaller break-even output, as can be shown here. As you can see, when I decrease the fixed cost, the break-even level of output has decreased as well. But what will happen if I increase the price? If I increase the price, then the break-even point will decrease, because if firms start to sell prices at a higher level, and of course this will have to depend on what type of good or the goods are being sold, whether they are price elastic or inelastic, depending on the responses of the consumers. If prices are increased, the total revenue will be greater, thus having a break-even level lower. Whereas if prices are lower, then the break-even point output will be greater, and it will cost them more to be able to reach with the total cost and generate profit from them. And what will happen if I increase the variable cost? If I increase variable cost, then the break-even output will increase, because considering that variable cost is one of the total costs, if I increase it, then the break-even point will even increase as well, as it can be shown here with the total cost that has made it increase, and will have a greater even level of output that will be required to generate profit. And as we have a variable cost that decreases, then total cost decreases along with it, making the break-even level of output less. And so now if I went to a variable cost at 8, then the break-even cost would be at 10. So let me just put in more numbers to have a better understanding. Let's say I want to start out with a fixed cost at, let's say, 200. So I kept that at 200, and then I want to price. I want to sell the Maze Green Yachts at 27. So I have them at 27, and my variable costs, let's say they have cost me more, so I want to put that at around $12, let's say. And so that will be part of my total cost, since total cost is the sum of the variable cost and fixed cost. And so far, I think I have a good understanding of the different elements needed to complete the break-even graph. So what has been obvious to me is that I can fully understand how the total cost is formed by having the idea that depending on the possible output, so the possible output with the green maze has been 20, whether we consider it as 20 units, and can be the maximum amount. You multiply the fixed with the max output, and then add it with the fixed cost. Thus, the end of the point of the total cost will be the sum of the fixed and variable cost figured from at y-axis. So, depending on the possible, we have to say I had a possible of 20 units of maze that I could produce, and I wanted to sell them at a price of 27. I would then have to multiply 27 times 12, which I would have about 314 or 4, and so 314, yes, and then so I would add it with the 200 from the fixed cost, so I would have about 414, which is right about at the line with the total cost here at the end, which is in correspondence with the total revenue on the y-axis of 404 when I added the variable cost plus the fixed cost. And so I have the idea of how it is formed, and understanding of the break-even point, how it will be cost me to produce 13.5 or 14, or I need at least 14 in order to start generalizing profit, because the break-even point just drops right about 13.5. But in order to ensure myself that I will make profit, I will need to have 14 units sold in order to have normal profit, and then after that, if I sell more, then I will be able to get an economic profit. So, self-assessing my performance, I have understood how the break-even chart has worked, how the total costs are formed, how the fixed cost remains stable, but only in the short run, because in the long run, all variables can be changed and altered, as the firms can be able to grow and expand their companies, such as making machines or factories. And so I have the understanding with the total profit that's more towards the right side, and losses are generated towards the left side. And the total revenue as prices depending on the goods. If the price increases, then the output, or then the break-even level of output will decrease as it will cost, as it will be quicker to get to the break-even level point. So just to make sure I have the understanding, I just wanna make sure with one of these questions. So if I drag, the question is drag curves and labels as appropriate from the panel to the right to break even diagram. So if I have total revenue and total costs, break even, yeah, perfect. And then in order to show the impact of a fall in fixed cost, I'll have to first have the idea of having a total cost first significantly greater, and then wait, yeah, right. And so in order to have the break-even point of a fall in fixed cost, then wait, the intersection would be right with the the break-even point. So yeah, got that too right. So yeah, so far I have a good understanding of what has been going on, the changes that happen with the prices. So as prices increase, the level of break-even output will rise as well. That's actually false. Yes, because the statement says that as the price rises, the level of break-even output will fall. That is true, because if I increase prices, then the break-even output will increase, but if I increase prices, then the level of output will fall, as I've done right now. And as price falls, the total revenue curve will shift downwards. Total revenue curve will shift downwards if I price falls. Yes, that is true. Yeah. And so finally, this last one is if a firm increases their price, which following changes will occur. So if a firm increases price, yes, the break-even level of output will fall as well, and profit at the existing level of output will fall. No, this is not true. And the total revenue curve will shift upwards to the left. Yes, this is true. Because the price increases, then the total revenue will shift leftwards, and as I said earlier, the break-even level of output will also fall because, as I showed it with the maze, it will be quicker for a firm to reach the break-even point and then be able to generate profit from there. And D and E are also as well false, as I've just read it. The break-even level of output will rise. That's not true, and the total revenue curve will shift downwards to the right. That's not right either. So let me just check my answers really quick. Yeah, I got it all right. So far I do have a really good understanding with what has been going on, the break-evens, the elements needed, and how they're formed, how the total cost is formed by adding the sum of fixed with the variable cost and the variable cost. In order to get that, you need to just multiply the variable cost with the prices and then add it with the fixed cost. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my interaction with it. Thank you.